Hey, welcome back, everybody. It's time for another episode of OC Spotlight, the one show, maybe the only show that shows you the most incredible stories, incredible things happening right here in our community. And this one, we've got a tale to tell you today here as I slip into me brogue, what to my awful version of it here. We have a special treat from Ireland. We have joining us today the producer of an Irish language film that's making its international debut at this week's Newport Beach Film Festival. And I'll see if I can pronounce it in the traditional Gaelic way. Dare I say Bríd Seoighe? Am I even close?
Bríd Seoighe, you're perfect.
Seoighe, all right. Which, if it were translated into English, like here in this country, it would be Bridget Joyce, right?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
And do we call that Gaelic or Celtic or just the original Irish language? Or how do we refer to your name and this film, which is filmed in that language?
Yeah, well, I suppose I refer to it as Irish language. In Irish, it's called Gaeilge.
Gaeilge, okay.
Yeah.
And I've heard it referred to as Gaelic or Celtic or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Fascinating story. I don't know how much this we can dive in our 10 or 15 minutes here together.
Okay.
Talk about who you are in your background. Have you been making films for a while, and were they always in the Irish language?
It's a very interesting question and something that I never think about. So you really caught me on guard.
I caught you. Oh, good. That's
Yeah. So I suppose I was brought up in a Gaeltacht, which is an Irish-speaking area in the west of Ireland.
Mhm.
I was sent to a Gaeltacht school where I was educated through Gaelic.
Mhm.
I was then sent to a boarding school, an all-Irish boarding school, which at that point your parents make a choice, make a decision that they want you to learn more about your language and your culture. So I
Right.
was sent to an all-Irish boarding school. And then I went to college and I did a degree in Celtic studies.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so I'm I'm
And how does
you know
filmmaker get into this? How do you decide to
so
make a
yeah,
film?
so that's interesting. When I was in college, I was involved in theatre, and in I suppose I was doing a master's, and at that time there was the Irish language broadcast station was being set up in Ireland,
Mhm.
and they were training people coming out of college. And so, I had decided that at that point I wasn't going to be a professor. I wasn't going to be,
Right.
a full lecturer. I liked the theatre. I liked the whole, I suppose the entertainment side of it. And so I trained. I was on one of the first courses that was trained producers, and I've been making Irish language documentaries primarily. Then we moved into drama, and now we had an opportunity with this script to make a film.
I never knew where my storytelling came from. My second grade teacher, the nun, asked my mother if I talk in my sleep, because I talk all the time. I tell stories all the time. It wasn't until I went to Ireland in my 20s and I found a whole country of people just like me. Who knew? I don't know. Is this part of the culture, just telling stories and sitting around and
Yeah.
telling stuff here? I'll give you the example. So the story I always tell is I went to Dublin. And walking around the streets, I'm looking for O'Connell Street, the big street that runs through there. I'm trying to find something. And I stop somebody like American High, can you tell me where this street is? And they immediately launch into a story. Oh, O'Connell Street, where me mother met me father. What a rat he turned out to be. If only she'd stayed away from that accursed street. And there's a 20-minute dialogue about O'Connell Street. I'm like, is it left or right? Everything was a story. And I just found that so amazing, and it connected me, I guess, I'm a fourth generation, as we were talking about before. I never met the people who came over in the 1840s and 50s. It was a shameful, horrible experience. They never wanted to discuss it down through the days. Better left forgotten, as my grandmother would say if she'd slip into the brogue. So what is it about the Irish character that tells stories like this, that's drawn to all the great playwrights and all the great poets and all the other people that Ireland's produced here?
Yeah, we have, without a doubt, it's when you leave the country you realize what talented writers, musicians,
Oh,
it's all storytelling, and filmmakers. So you said earlier that Greg, who runs the
Greg
Newport,
Schwenk, who doesn't have an ounce of Irish blood in him, but is fascinated
Irish
with
film.
Irish stories and does, as we're going to talk about, this Irish Spotlight as part of this week-long film festival. It's now celebrating its 25th year. and they have major productions and interesting shorts and talented people coming down from Hollywood, and yet he makes a special effort to find and support Irish films in general, and I think this year, for the first time, Irish language films. And I'm
So
just,
we are
I'm
the
amazed.
spotlight Irish language film. I think this is my own theory. This is not researched, but
Right.
I come from a family west of Ireland. My father would come from a very, very remote area. And somebody told me at a funeral, I never met my grandfather, but somebody told me at a funeral that my grandfather was the best storyteller they had ever heard. So,
There'd be a few people that challenged him for that, but
I
I'm
know,
sure he was.
absolutely.
Yeah, right.
But that people walked and cycled for 40, 50 miles to come and listen to him.
Unbelievable.
And I thought this was wonderful. They said he would tell a ghost story. So you're talking about a very remote area. There's nobody around. They have no electricity. It's dark.
Right.
They're spooking each other out with these stories. And he said that they would leave. They'd have a toilet break. And that everybody would come back in afterwards and stay the rest of the night to hear the rest of the story. It reminded me of a TV show and the ad break. If you're good enough, you'll come back
That's
afterwards.
right. We'll be right back right after this break. Yeah, exactly here. I just found it magical and lyrical. And I guess I didn't know where these come from. How did they get passed down through generations, though, like this? Because I'm American. My Irish roots are long distant. I had to dig to find them, and the people who held the stories and knew the stories did nothing but want to cover them up. We're Americans now. We're not going to go back, and we're not going to talk like that, and we're not going to explore those things.
Yeah.
And so the Irish culture really for us was kind of extinguished. And yet, here I am rattling on again. We're telling stories.
Yeah. Well, you see, we have a very, very, you said earlier, we talk all the time.
Yeah.
We have a very, very, very strong folklore tradition, which really has kept our storytelling alive, old Irish songs alive, old prayers alive, and they have been passed down from generation to generation. And there's a lot of preservation going on now through the universities, where they're preserving old stories that have been written down by people in the last, say, 50 years. Old songs that have never been heard before are now being sung by young people. And I suppose social media and the world that we live in now is able to spread all this information.
So tell me briefly
folklore.
About the Irish language itself. When did it, anybody wants to study Irish history, it's a sad tale. And, the British mostly invaded it, took over the country, and despite struggles, imposed their language upon this country here. And for a long time, I guess it was that was the way you got ahead or whatever. The Irish language got at some point forgotten until an effort came about. Was it the 60s or 70s when the government and the people said, no, we're not going to let this disappear. It had almost disappeared. Little pockets here and there in the country. And they made a concerted effort, and I'm told to this day, and since then, you learn whatever part of the country is, you still learn Irish. You still see signs everywhere in the whole country in English and Irish, and there's been a dedicated drive to do that. Is that succeeding? How many people still speak the language? Give us some ideas of what it is.
Well, it's not I mean, there was a civil rights movement in the 70s. Out of that came the radio, the Irish language radio. Out of that came the Irish TV station, which is the station that has put this Cine 4 scheme together that allows me to make a film in my native Irish language, that funds it. This is why we're here. This is why we're going to Newport Beach tomorrow. The figures, the census, I can only go by what the census that
because when I went to Ireland in the 80s, it was hard to find anybody that spoke the language. Little bits, they had studied it, but no, their day-to-day language was, rightly or wrongly, was in English. But we did, when we went to the western part, we stumbled onto a village, and quite frankly, got the feeling, because I guess we came in like typical Timmy the tourist from America, hey, speak Irish to us, here, we're going to film this. And they were kind of like, why don't you just go somewhere? This isn't just for show and tell here. This is our life. We really live this. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, the census, the 2022 census says there are 1.9 million people aged 3 and over who can speak Irish. But it then also says 1 out of 10 of those only can speak it well.
Yeah, right.
So you're really to find Irish now. You're going to pockets in small Gaeltachts, usually along the west coast.
You say Gael.
That
That's
still survive.
to me. That's spelled like in English Gael or Gael talk or
That's
something,
right.
right? Yeah, the
Yeah,
Gael talk. And it sort of
Gael.
reminded me in a weird way of when we went to Montreal. And I, like a typical American, was amazed at how many people still are fluent in French in this little city, in this little area, in the middle of this English-speaking country here, and how they hold on to that heritage fiercely and protect it and develop it. And it's a living, breathing example for those people. It seems the same way for the pockets that still exist in Ireland. It's just the living, breathing continuation of what's always been.
I have to just, you see, the other thing that's happening, so that's one side of the language, which is the old, I suppose, the language that has been there forever and ever.
Right.
Then there is this other side, which is the Gaelscoileann, the Irish language secondary schools have been hugely successful at promoting the language. This has been going on for about 30 years. And when you see our film, Blue Fiddle, the little girl who is the lead role in that is a product of that education.
There you go.
So, so it's actually, there's two sides to it. So there are all these, what I would call young, cool city kids now that are
Yeah.
actually know it's cool to speak the language.
I've read that,
want to
and
be
making
in
an effort
films.
to
Yeah.
live that. If they speak
Yes.
English as a second language, it isn't like this. It's
So
just
there are,
something.
it really is, and say my son is one of those. He lives in Dublin. He's got a completely different, he doesn't work in this business. He hangs with people and they go to festivals. They speak Irish. They play Irish music. So they've,
To me, it
and
has
few
a.
of our cast come from that background.
I looked at your trailer, and there's one line in there that struck me, and the woman is describing it, or maybe it was one of the other films, but whatever she was saying, I'm reading the translation at the bottom, the subtitles. It's a lyrical language. To my ear, it's a harsh language. It's a guttural language. It almost has a Germanic sound. What's the origin of the language? Does it trace back to anything?
It's a Celtic language, Indo-European.
Right.
I spent many years. I have my third license.
Early on, this is what all of Europe did in the before the Dark Ages or whatever, way back when, and then bit by bit, the Germanic tribes came in and other groups came in and pushed them off and out to the peripheries here to Brittany and to Ireland and to that Celtic part of Spain, whatever that's called there, a little thing here.
Yeah, but you're right. To my ear, it is a guttural language, but it also depends on what dialect you're listening to.
Ah, wow, okay.
And this is
So there's
because
there is Manx from the Isle of Manx or Isle of Man, and then there's Scottish, and there's Welsh, and there's Britain from Brittany, France, and stuff.
Yes.
Right? And all these have a
But in
different sound
Ireland,
to them, right?
there's different sounds. We have Northwest in Ireland sound very, very different to Connemara, and sound where your people come from, Kerry, a completely different dialect. We even use different words. And so like people like my father who are native Irish speakers would not really understand somebody from
Really,
the
it's
south.
that different. Okay.
Yes.
Like
And
in
my
this country.
husband is from Donegal and he would not understand his people when they're speaking Irish.
Well, isn't that amazing? Well, so you've made a film in the Irish language. Tell me, you won some awards. I think at Galway or something. You've won some awards for this.
So we've just shown it in Galway. We got a really we wanted to test it. Showed it in Galway. We got a wonderful response. It won best new feature for us, and so we then got invited to Newport Beach. We're showing it to a completely different audience on Sunday. At 6:30, I think, and then the following day on Monday.
It
which
is.
is very exciting for us.
It
to
is.
see what
In fact, it's going to be Sunday, October 20th at 6:15 at the big Newport 5 Theater. And then they're rerunning it on following Monday at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Same theater. This is right across from Fashion Island for anybody that's there. Very fashionable place and very upscale neighborhood. I wonder how people will react to it, even of Irish heritage like me. I'm drawn to hear just your Irish accent just sends a smile to my face here. When my grandmother would drop into the brogue a little bit and do that, there's something very appealing to me about that. And most people of my relatives or friends who are Irish, we all have that. We're drawn to hear that. But I don't know if we're drawn to hear it in the real language. It doesn't resonate with me. It doesn't. I hear Irish music and something comes alive in me. I hear the Irish language and I go, am I really related to it, or am I so far removed that I can't feel it anymore here?
Well, you are related to it. And the movie has a beautiful Irish score, Irish music score. So it's a blue fiddle. So you can imagine it's fiddle playing, and the music is healing, is a healing story. So it's a story of hope, and the little girl believes if she can play the fiddle like her dad used to, she'll be able to wake him up from a coma. So we
Yes.
have the most beautiful Irish music you will ever hear in
I'm going
this
to
movie.
read the description of it that's in the film guide here. It says, when 10-year-old Molly meets a grumpy old fiddle player, I must look like the grumpy old fiddle player with my Irish beard here. When she hears he has magic in his hands, she believes that if she can convince him to teach her to play the fiddle as beautifully as her father once did, because I guess he's in a coma, right? That she can wake him from the coma. What? That's an Irish story. It's almost like fairies and little leprechauns and stuff. It's a belief in sort of magic. It's a belief in something magical there. And I was just struck by the whole landscape. The landscape to me is so typical of what my relatives were like. They were either very cold and hard, or they were happy and laughing and drinking and having. There was sort of no in between. They were way up or way down, and doom and gloom or fun forever here. And when you go to Ireland, it's this dark, rocky, gray, overcast thing that rains all the time, so it's green, and people just come alive. It is something sort of magic that springs up from this rocky landscape. I don't know how anybody lives in this rock in the middle of this windswept ocean here. But it's beautiful, and it's green, and it's fun, and it's happy. And it's also partly sad and gray and dark and everything else. I know it's a contrast.
But what the film is ultimately about, it's a story of hope.
Yeah.
It's a story of hope and resilience.
And isn't that the story of the Irish people in general? Hope and resilience.
Yeah.
I think that's what some
of we need a bit of it in the world today, don't we?
Absolutely. I told you the story. I'll tell it real quickly, that I went on Ancestry and discovered my great-grandfather came over during the famine. And if I have my numbers right, I think there were like 3 million people in Ireland. Roughly 1/3 stayed, 1/3 died, and 1/3 emigrated. And they came over, and they were so desperate, she got on a boat with a baby and gave birth on the boat. And just true resilience, true determination, true hope for a better life and a better future. That to me is the Irish character in its entirety. So I look forward to seeing this film. I love to see it because my grandson is now somehow picked up playing the fiddle, the violin, with no push from anybody. Where this came from, maybe it's again the continuation of the Irish character or something here. I don't know, but I'm going to take him to it and see if he can.
Please do.
And I don't know if he'll sit through. I don't think he's ever seen it. He's only 10. I don't think he's ever seen a film in any kind of subtitles. And so whether he can relate to it or that will be a barrier to him, be interesting. But I'd love to take him to Ireland someday and give him a sense of who we are and where we came from here.
Yeah, that's interesting that he's taken up the fiddle.
Yeah, out of nowhere. Like even his parents are like, "What's he doing this for?" So I don't know. What is it about this thing that it's not an easy instrument to play here? That's for sure.
No.
All right. Go ahead.
We have the composer and the lead actress. She'll be playing. She's coming to launch the film. She'll be playing the fiddle. The composer plays his daughter, his 2 daughters. So we'll have 4 fiddle players if you bring him along.
I love it. And then you're going to go next door to one of our big Irish pubs here. Muldoon's is right next door for the party afterwards. I expect somebody to break out the fiddle and play here or something.
We have the blue fiddle. I'm carrying it on Aer Lingus tomorrow.
I mean, come on. If we're going to do this, we're not just going to drink and celebrate this thing. We're going to play some music or something here. I want to hear some authentic Irish music at the pub here. Well, I just am so amazed at the support of the film festival year in and year out to host Irish films. Last year they had, is it Jim Jordan? Is he the famous?
Jim Sheridan, yeah.
Jim Sheridan. Jim Sheridan was here playing In the Name of the Father. It's one of his first films he did with Daniel Day-Lewis. And maybe it was the first film. And this year, you guys are filling that spot and doing it. And they have several other Irish films, not in Irish, but about Irish themes and Irish stories as well here. And I encourage everybody, if you have a drop of green in you at all, or orange, I'm sorry to say, I'm wearing orange today here. I should be wearing green, but we are in Orange County. If you have a drop of Irish blood in you, which seems like a ton of Americans do, I mean, I don't know where they all find it on St. Patrick's Day, but we've all somehow got claim to a little bit of Irishness. If you have any interest, go watch this film. I think I'm suspecting it captures, as we said, the whole Irish history, feeling, story of what you get when you go there. It's a magical place. It's a storytelling place, and it's filled with lots of hope and lots of, I'm sure, banter back and forth. My family loved to banter. You know, if somebody would say something, you had to one-up them. Whatever it was, you couldn't just say, yeah.
You always have to be one better.
Well, I always had to have one better, exactly. So I'm looking forward to this greatly, and I welcome the idea of embracing the original language, which still thrives and survives all these many years later. Thank you so much.
We really look forward to, I'm really looking forward to speaking to the audience afterwards. We're going to do a Q&A, and I'm really excited and really interested to hear what people are going to say to us about.
And this is a horrible thing to say, but would you ever issue it in English or anything, or does that just undercut the whole point of this everything to reach a bigger audience? Like they dub it into Spanish or other, more than just subtitles? Would you dub it into other languages?
Yeah, we will at some point. We have an agreement. We'll travel with it for a while. Then it will get shown on the broadcast station TG Carr, which funded it, and then at some point we will look at, you know, selling it to other territories. Mm-hmm. Some people like to dub it. Some people like the subtitles. Mm-hmm. So that will depend on the territory. The market and the distributor who knows it. Well, thank you for coming. That comes down the road. This Sunday, for those listening live, this Sunday, October 20th, don't miss it. You get a chance to hear it, not just and meet the cast and meet the producer and meet the people who made this film, but see a real Irish language film. I'll leave you with this. There's a Brothers of St. Patrick, I guess it's not a monastery. What would they call it? Wherever the brothers live. And I don't know why it's here in Westminster, except there was a large Irish population that emigrated here a long time ago. There are streets named for Irish saints and Irish cities and all sorts in Westminster and Garden Grove, which is now filled with Vietnamese. It's been replaced by the Irish have been replaced by the latest wave of immigrants to come over. And my point is, it's the only time I heard an Irish mass. And and they play whatever you call the Irish, what's the thing with the stick and everything here, hurling. And I was amazed that there's how many people turned out. I think it's like there's something back there calling us. You know, if you have there's a fascination with Irish culture anyway, and certainly Irish storytelling. But I think here in Orange County, which you don't think of as an Irish center, I think you'll find an amazing reaction. I suspect you will. I hope you will. We'll find out. We will. See, that kind of hope. We will. You sound like my grandmother. Remember, my mother would just, we will. There's just no doubt about it. We will. Come along. Why are you questioning it again, boy? We will. Well, thank you so much for coming and letting me air out some of my Irish history and my Irish connections here. I greatly look forward to this film. And again, I encourage everybody to do it. Go to the website for the Newport Beach Film Festival. Look up Blue Fiddle, or as they say in the Irish language, on Fidil Ghorm. Fidil Ghorm. All right. I look forward to meeting you and seeing the film and all the other films and be spotlighted that night and to the party afterwards. That's what we're really looking forward to. The film is great, but then it leads to the party, and that's what we all come for here, at least if my family. We do it properly. Don't have to with us. Exactly. All right. Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope to see everybody out there. I'll be there. You'll see me. Am I allowed to wear orange to this? I know that's a divisive color here in Ireland, but all right. We'll all be wearing blue. Yeah, blue. Okay, yeah, for the Blue Fiddle, right? Yeah. Wasn't blue the original color of the Irish language? I mean, somebody told me years ago it wasn't always green associated with Irish people. There was a blue component early on, but somehow it turned into green, and then obviously orange, William of Orange, and all those kinds of things came, and there became two colors separating the people there. All right. Well, we'll find out more. We're going to dig into that one. We'll get back to you. Okay. Thanks so much for joining us here. All right. Thank you, Paul. Well, there you have it. One more reason, a really good reason to tune in each and every time and stay connected with us here at OC Talk Radio as we explore
a bit of the brogue and a bit of our history right here in Orange County at the fantastic 25th anniversary of the Newport Beach Film Festival and their special Irish Spotlight.